What does a streaming industry plant really look like?
So when most people discover that they're not naturally gifted, they typically work harder, they train more. If they don't have any money, they start working longer hours, try to start a business. But you decided to rewrite your biology.
The person being spoken to in this clip is Clavicular, some guy that you probably wondered how he hit your feed in the past couple of weeks. He's a 19-year-old influencer pushing a highly compelling yet potentially dangerous message when misinterpreted. Many people have considered him a, quote, industry plant and even crafted some conspiracy theories, but the truth is simpler than that. Having taken PEDs, in particular testosterone, since he was 14 years old, he was running through the thought experiment of getting limb lengthening surgery to grow 4 inches in height.
Yeah, so they're going to lengthen both the limbs, right? So they could do your femurs, and they could add to the lower legs as well. That's called a double LL.
He's making waves all across the internet, and both loved and hated in equal measure.
Someone who's not good looking might have the greatest personality, you might like them and be soulmates with them, but you will never even get the opportunity to try that out because they're so bad looking, right?
Many people think he's a crazy person obsessed with image, but he's turned this criticism on its head. He claims he's merely a person adapting to a crazy world obsessed with image.
If you're someone who, is on their computer all day, they're going to be like, oh, wow, he's so shy, he's so nerdy. Like, this is so cute. Whereas if you're unattractive, you're a computer gamer, you're, sitting in your room all day, oh, that guy's a weirdo, that guy's a creep, stuff like this. So it's just the way different actions that you do are perceived will be vastly changed by your looks level.
His story is not just important on its own, but it also gives us an insight into a movement that's been taking over the internet the past several years called looks maxing, or trying to be as good looking as possible. The first thing to understand about Clavicular is just how ruthless he is in achieving his goals. As a teenager, his former bodybuilder parents were horrified when they caught him taking testosterone, but he couldn't be persuaded otherwise.
Well, for a while, my parents would, go through my room and find steroids, often confiscate them. So that'd be a bit of a burden because sometimes I'd have to go like a few weeks without injecting testosterone. Well, they confiscated it. So it was hard at first, but eventually they started to realize that there was nothing that they could do about it. I was always going to do whatever it takes. So
from his perspective, it seemed ridiculous to work your way into shape instead of just taking substances that would fast track the process.
Well, I have always had the mentality that if something is going to get you to your goals quicker, then why not go for it, right? So when I was a kid, obviously I wasn't the most well-versed in pharmacology, so I didn't exactly know what I was doing, but I knew that it would help me get to the place I wanted to be at a lot more efficient rate. So, skipping out on that just seemed ridiculous. I thought, why would I work out as a natural, take years to make the progress that I can make in months? It didn't make sense to me at all. I was never worried about side effects. I was just worried about progressing, right? So that's kind of always been my mentality. I'm all or nothing with everything that I do, and I just needed to do it.
Clavicular was at the formative age of 16 to 17 in 2023, so he witnessed the meteoric rise of the streamer John Zerka. Zerka, as many people know, took a lot of steroids at a young age during the golden era of fitness content, where Z's was at the top of the game. Clavicular talks about Zerka's influence on him and his interactions with girls. But this is not just a story of a teenager being, quote, radicalized by the internet. He actually developed a lot of his philosophy from real-life experiences. Taking lots of steroids got him a job as a nightclub bouncer, and it was here that he realized that being jacked only went so far when it came to picking up women.
So I was noticing who was going home with the pretty girls every night, and I noticed it was really about 1 to 2% of men, right? So it was people who were very tall, people who were very good looking. This is something I was noticing over my formative years when I was a teenager growing up, right? So making these observations, kind of seeing that sometimes good-looking people would be able to go up to women and start making out with them without saying anything, I kind of started to shift my worldview a little bit and realize, hey, okay, so this is like the most important metric.
So Clavicular realized that he needed to go all in on his looks and create what's known as the halo effect. You saw this with the example he gave earlier, where a good-looking man conventionally who spends all day on his computer is a cute nerd, But a conventionally unattractive man who spends all day on his computer is seen as a weird creep. And Clavicular isn't making this up either. There's a substantial amount of evidence and research which backs this up. Something like a highly symmetrical face is not only viewed as attractive, but we also view them as indicators of sociability, intelligence, liveliness, self-confidence, and mental health. That doesn't just get you the girlfriend or boyfriend you always desired, but makes you more favorable throughout your everyday life. It affects everything. So, with this in mind, it made sense to maximize how good you look, or looks max. Looks maxing is a movement that comes from the same lineage, but very different from the red pill movement, of which Andrew Tate and Fresh and Fit became the biggest faces. In the red pill community, the emphasis is on making money and building up your social status, with the main tenets coming from the book The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi, and is more optimistic for how much these improvements can make in one's life. The build it and they will come mentality. For Clavicular and the looks maxing community, it's all about aesthetics and was birthed from what is now known as the black pill. The black pill, also referred to as BP, was a reactionary movement to the red pill and was based on, and is based on, genetic determinism. Phrases like, quote, "it's over," "rope," and other terms come from this, with early content creators like Wheat Waffles on YouTube espousing the philosophy, but it really manifested in individuals like Oreo Man, who would consistently complain about not being desired. Things like building status, making money, approaching women were all considered, quote, copes by the BP, and that looks were the be-all, end-all, and that this was genetic lottery. Looks maxing came out as a, quote, cope of the BP. If looks were all that mattered, people who didn't want to ladar, also known as lie down and rot, were going to do whatever it took to look better. For them, beauty isn't in the eye of the beholder, it's an exact science, and there's a numerical system used to determine how pretty your face is.
So it's a huge numbers thing. It's really autistic, but everything is about numbers, right, and measurements. So that could be the measurement of your eyes based on, the width of your zygos, and relativity. That could be your mid-face ratio, right? So the distance from your eyes, to the outer part of your lips, and this is supposed to be 1-to-1, your mid-face. The facial width, right? The width of your jaw relative to the width of your cheekbones. There's just all these different numbers, and then it gets you what's called a harmony score.
Soon, Clavicular graduated from high school and went to college. However, after just a few weeks into his freshman year, he was expelled. On his YouTube channel, now banned, Clavicular explained what had happened.
I was kicked out of uni for essentially roid maxing and, looks maxing, whatever the term you want to use is. But unfortunately, someone decided to archive all of my posts and apparently find out where I went to university and send them all to the public safety at my university, detailing all my alleged activities, which prompted them, the university, to do a search of my room and uncover certain looks maxing peptides and, things like hormones and, TRT, whatnot. So unfortunately, I was kicked from university for this, and I'm not sure how we're looking in terms of whether I'll go back or not at this current point.
So, while steroids are not recreational drugs, they are still illegal substances, and this was why he was banned. The bigger question was, who did this and why? According to Clavicular, it was someone from a community forum that he was popular on.
So I'm not exactly sure which person on the forum decided to go ahead and do this, but I know it was someone from the forum, unfortunately, so I guess they got the best of me. But I honestly believe that no one would have malicious intent enough to try to go out of their way and get me kicked out of my university, but just you never know what's going through people's heads, or maybe they see my success in terms of my threads and all the stuff that I was doing and were envious of it.
But what actually happened was something far more insidious. Someone had actually impersonated Clavicular on a different forum that we will call the Fruit Forum, as they prefer to stay low-key, and we will respect their wishes. This was likely a troll from org, the original forum that Clavicular was a frequent poster on. This troll intentionally got on the wrong side of certain people on the Fruit forum that were known to dox, and Clavicular got doxed, which is having his public information revealed, including his parents' address, which they would end up getting swatted, and now their address, if looked up on Google Maps, is blurred due to this happening. Someone also seemed to have contacted his university as well and revealed his double life as a looks maxer and the substances that came with it. Clavicular then explained what he planned to do next.
I'm back at my job doing security, so I'm making good money, and in a couple of months' time, I will be, or probably less, I will be surgery maxing and doing a full Trimax or Bimax with a Genio, whatever you want to call it. So this is just going to move that time frame up and make my ascension happen sooner. That's why I'm trying to look at this as like a good thing and stay on the bright side.
He would also post on the forum and say that he was finally going to start selling things. He never wanted to do that, but the fact that he was expelled from school and all of the free value that he had given over thousands of posts on that forum, he felt like he needed to sustain himself. So he began to sell the knowledge that he had. And this was a blessing in disguise. The ascension he was referring to is his ascension to Chad, which is what his community refers to as the ultimate male. And becoming, quote, Chad unlocks endless opportunities.
And once you are ascended, to Chad, it doesn't really matter what you do. Your life is already decided for you, and you could put your mind to anything and succeed if you have good looks. That's all it is. So it's like, why am I going to sit there for 4 years in university and delay surgery rather than just working, being able to get these, various plastic surgeries and ascend much sooner in my life?
And whether you agree with him or not, this was actually the moment where opportunities actually started to arise. Clavicular grew as a looks maxing influencer, but then expanded beyond this bubble. First, he became good friends with a very popular TikToker named Cookie King, and this opened him up to a completely new audience.
And I see this guy across the club because I go to the dance floor since I'm not a table jester. I give this guy a big old kiss, and I'm like, okay, what's up? So we do that. And then from there, I think you lasted about 30 minutes. And then I think you vomited all over. It might have been Lance. I think you.
Dude, I don't remember growing up.
But what also helped him grow was his decision to invite a highly controversial guest onto his stream, Nick Fuentes. On this stream, Clavicular argued that both he and Nick Fuentes were providing solutions to disaffected young men.
My take on the whole situation is this is what young men need to do to have their voices heard, right? Because if you aren't good looking, no one's going to take your opinion seriously. So yeah, you can spread the message and do your part, but what's really going to happen unless you have a really presentable face and stature is you're just going to get deplatformed, have your life ruined for no reason, right? If you're able to build a successful career talking about right-wing politics, and then you kind of push the limits, get deplatformed, but you still have an audience like you, sure. But the majority of people are just going to ruin their lives with deplatforming and stuff like that.
At the time, Cookie King sought to distance himself from this new direction.
I do agree that that was kind of a bad look, because here's the thing. He came to LA and Clav was asking if I want to come over. I kept saying no. I didn't want to come over. I said, if he's going to be there, I'm not going to come over.
Cookie King was more of a comedic content creator. He wasn't involved in anything controversial whatsoever. Clavicular is not really political at all in his message or content, but he felt that this was a risk that was worth it. He had found Nick's content when he was very young, and at a point in time was a close follower.
I started, I think, watching Nick streams from time to time when I was in 7th grade. So I found out about him during the Groyper Wars in 2019.
Yeah, that was with Charlie Kirk against Charlie.
Yeah, those were
6 years.
The funniest stream I've ever watched of all time was when he was reacting to the Charlie Kirk sit down of all the Groypers going up to his live
Dancing Israelis clip.
Q&A.
Yeah.
That was the peak of social media, because it was so different of a time in 2019 what was socially acceptable. Now it's that wouldn't really be as funny because there's so much outrage on like uncensored
Right,
platforms.
we pushed the boundary, the over to Windows way
But
further.
that was like something new. That was something unique that I had never seen before.
Yeah.
That was like really
That
fun.
is a great club. I wonder how that guy's doing, man. Shout out to that one Goldberg.
Yeah, man, because those guys like went up there like no face masks, like these cringe like Fed rallies, like they were just like ready to go to the wall on Kirk, man.
This came at a time before Nick Fuentes was beginning to get interviewed and invited on by every other popular influencer this year. So Clavicular received a bit of backlash from his own audience, and Nick Fuentes would also receive a bit of backlash from his audience for collabing with the, quote, zesty Looksmaxers.
TikTok Looksmaxer Clavicular, and we did a live stream on Kick. We did some TikToks. It was a lot of fun. And we talked all about Looksmaxing. And honestly, I don't know how much I buy into all that. We hung out a little bit throughout the weekend and we did this stream. And he's telling me about how he's on all these protocols and they're pushing steroids and surgeries. And I said, hey, man, that's a little too much for me. I go to the gym. Like, let's start with that. I can't even go to the gym because it hurts. Now you're telling me I got to take steroids? I won't even get a surgery on my deviated septum. I'm going to now get a double jaw surgery, leg extension surgery. I'm like, you know what? I'm happy as an incel. That's how I was born. That's how I live. And I've accepted it. That is my lot in life. Those that will have shall have more. And those that have nothing, even what little they have in the way of Stacy's, will be taken from them by the genetically superior males, by the Chads. I've accepted it. I can live with that. X did not like it. X, Twitter, was not with the TikToks. I don't know why, but everybody was beefing about the TikToks. It's not for you, okay? It's barely even for me, okay? This is for a younger crowd. It's for young, tapped-in Looksmaxers and Chads. It is not for seething unks and boomers on Twitter that are posting jib-jab edits of Trump dancing to Staying Alive, okay? Carpe Donkdom is down the hall and to the left, okay? Cat Turd, that's another extension. This was for the Zoomers. This one was for the new gens. This was for Gen Alpha. This was for the Agartha posters. This was for Schmerg. We did it for Schmerg. We did not do it for Cat Turd. So if Cat Turd didn't like it, well, it wasn't for you. But that was one of the collabs. I had a lot of fun. I thought it was great.
Months later, Clavicular was invited onto Cheezer's stream, one of Aiden Ross's close friends, who also had Nick Fuentes on his stream in the past. And on Cheezer's stream, people were shocked by some of the words coming out of Clavicular's mouth.
You also wait, is it true you do meth? Somebody told me you do meth too.
I do meth, yes. So I do meth to, basically suppress my appetite and try to get leaner. Try to lean.
Wait,
meth.
so how are you not like tweaking right now if you do meth?
Well, I mean, once you use it for a while, and if you use moderate dosages, you're just getting like the same effects as Adderall plus the appetite suppression.
Okay.
So if you guys didn't know, methamphetamine is essentially the same, class of drug as Adderall. It's just an addition of the methyl group. So, the effects are quite similar, so it's really not as bad as people think. You just have a lot of people smoking meth, so it's surpassing their blood-brain barrier.
Wait, how do you take it?
Intranasally.
I'm sorry, what is that?
Like up your nose.
Then he was asked to judge the appearance of other streamers. Here we have Clavicular's brutal takedown of one of Aiden Ross's friends, Schnaggy Hose.
Boy Schnaggy Hose. That's a picture of him in 2021, and then Ryan. Okay.
That's real?
Yeah, it's real.
I don't know. How long do we have? I mean, he's obviously like, this is a true sub 5. Like, this is basically as worse as it gets in terms of looks. This is like unfixable in terms of, aesthetics. There's essentially no potential.
And this ruthless assessment of Cuff'em.
All right, this is one of my boys, Cuff'em. You probably seen him. He's blowing up right now. He's going crazy. He's all over there. You saw Cuff'em?
Yeah, we've talked about Cuff'em a good amount on stream.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Cuff'em, I would say, is arguably the worst looking streamer that I think I've encountered. Him and Schnaggy it's a toss up on who's worse looking, but he's definitely the worst looking streamer, in my opinion, that I've ever come across.
So what do you think
So-
Cuffham should do to, like, let's say, get above a 5?
Well, when you're this high body fat, when you're this, like, obese, essentially, we need to get down to like 10, 12% body fat before we can even start to analyze like what the is actually going wrong. Because, if you can't even see the bone structure, if you can't even, start to address some of the facial features, some of the phalos, like I've got no idea what's going on under this like blubber, essentially. So I wouldn't even bother with.
Cuffham even saw the funny side to this and brought Clavicular onto his own stream to see if he could find an uglier streamer.
That's obviously a distorted picture, right? So
It's a distorted picture.
What's his name?
Annoying. Look up Annoying TV. I'm not showing Jake Future, weirdo. Yeah.
I'd say you got him. You would definitely mock him, but it's not by.
That's one.
Margin.
No, I don't want to hear. No, I don't hear no excuse.
Looks maxing has its own language too. To quote mog someone means to look better than them. This was initially AMOG, a term from the PUA community in the early 2000s that stood for alpha male of the group. It was a strategy developed by PUAs, also known as pickup artists, to attempt to undermine or deflate the dominant figure or male in what they called a mixed set, which was a group of guys and girls, or it could be a guy and a girl. It was just think of co-ed. For example, to AMOG someone would be to walk up to a guy who's trying to pick up a girl and take her from them through tactics that had nothing to do with looks or brawn. However, now, to MOG for the looks maxers became to look better than another male in a photo, social setting, or video. So Clavicular was presenting streamers with a window into this underground world of looks maxing and became a good side character for their content. Somewhat akin to Mystery doing a TV show on VH1 nearly 2 decades ago, or the book The Game being written that was a mainstream writer going into this underground world that most people in the public didn't know about. Neon even had him on his stream to play the wingman.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, you're not my type, so. What? We're gonna have to move on. Next segment. What? Well, I just don't like her. I don't know. Well, I think you're very beautiful.
Thank you.
He was also on Jack Doherty's stream, and there was this awkward moment where he decided to insult the female friends Jack was with, while Clavicular was also with his girlfriend.
So you're gonna be rocking solo, grinding. That's what it's all about.
Unless I feel like I'm ready for another relationship, you know?
Yeah. Gotta add to the little crew over here.
Yo, that was crazy. Yo, guys, speak up, bro.
I can hear him.
Stop being so background.
What?
There you go, Paris. Bark.
You.
Yo.
Why?
I could just tell. Right off the bat, yeah.
Why? You think your girlfriend's more than her?
No.
Why?
Definitely not. I mean, I don't want to be like.
She's going to college.
You're going to college?
No, your girlfriend. No, his girlfriend's in college, bro.
I put a
She's
I went to take it art. Yeah.
Where did she go?
You Miami?
She's getting right? She's getting nice. She's getting. Aiden Ross is in there right now. I'm joking.
I was gonna say, I know you're joking around, but you are kind of a dickhead. The way
But you said they're though.
I do think that they're.
So I gotta stick up for them too, you know.
Absolutely.
If I side with you, they're my friends, you know. I can't just laugh at your jokes. I try to.
Yeah.
But I laugh it off real quick, then I don't want to offend them, you know.
Okay.
And in a very short span of time, Clavicular found himself rubbing shoulders with Sneeko and Aiden Ross.
Well, he introduced me to meth, and now I love him.
Just let him sit right there, you weirdo. That's you guys are a duo. What's up, bro? Hey. You go ahead and have a seat, Clav. You have a seat. Oh, yeah, you have a seat over there.
Ultimately, these streamers found him entertaining. It wasn't until his appearance on the Jack Neal podcast that he was properly challenged on his lifestyle. And for a 19-year-old guy, he was surprisingly well-spoken. He was asked about what a lot of people wondered about Clavicular. Was he just insecure?
Right. In terms of insecurity, it's just not something I've really ever experienced. Like, I've been hyper aware that, over the course of development, there were some points in my life where I really was like very, suboptimal in terms of my aesthetics, but I was like okay with that because I knew that there was things that I could do, and I knew that the measures would be extreme. But I was like, well, this is kind of what it takes, and I was always someone who's willing to do whatever it takes.
Jack Neal also pointed out that looks maxing is all about maximizing your looks, but at the expense of your health.
I would say that functionality is a better word than health, right? Because it is very likely that some of my lifespan will be diminished with the things that I'm doing. I don't believe that's from some of the steroids, but maybe some of the recreational drugs in conjunction with the steroids. So that's a very real possibility. But in terms of like functional health, I'm fantastic, right? I'm always very sharp. So there's nothing wrong in terms of that, in terms of the way I feel every day.
And the elephant in the room was that he's already a classically handsome guy by the thoughts of majority of people. Why was he still trying to maximize?
What I want to say to that is extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures, right? And the extraordinary times are just how hypergamous women are nowadays, right? They're dating way above their looks level, way above their means. And the men who are not at the top percentiles are left with nothing, right? Because everyone's extremely promiscuous, having tons of different partners, but this is the top, right? And then everyone who's not close, they're like, what the
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This was part of why he wanted to do limb surgery, or had considered it, and because of the halo effect, he claims that this would pay for itself.
We know tall is good, and we could back that up with research, right? We know that every single inch, you grow past 6 foot, you're adding like an additional $500 to your average annual income in America. So we know that taller is better. We know that fat is worse. These are things we could back up with research, and they're absolute. So I think it's very reasonable, knowing these disparities, knowing things about dating app statistics and how women are literally just filtering out people completely under outrageous height percentiles, right? We'll see women put their height filters on 6'3", and then you actually look at percentiles, and we're like, you just eliminated 95 percentiles worth of men right off the bat with one filter and one metric.
Hypergamous is when someone looks to date someone of a higher status. This stereotypically refers to women who choose men who are wealthier, smarter, or have a higher social status. But Clavicular is suggesting women also go for men who are much more attractive than them as well. This interview was just one example of how confident he was, which some people attribute to his use of substances like pregabalin and baclofen. On the Fresh and Fit podcast, he confidently spoke about relationships in front of a large group of women.
My body count is in the triple digits. So, and I'm 19 years old. I worked in nightlife for a while, so I've had a lot of experience. I've noticed a lot of trends. So that's why I'm able to speak on a lot of these things with a level of maturity that not a lot of other people my age might be able to.
And there were moments where he really got under people's skin.
Someone who's not good looking might have the greatest personality. You might like them and be soulmates with them, but you will never even get the opportunity to try that out because they're so bad looking, right? So I'm telling you, this is
you're so wrong. I dated the ugliest dude ever for 5 years, and I loved the hell out of him.
Performative bull. It's all performative.
He gave some very controversial views about dating, but he also casually dropped some slurs as well. He routinely called all of these women harlots.
Clav, if you join FaZe, what would be your name? It starts with an N.
FaZe.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Wait. McKay said what?
Wait, you white, right?
He said it so fast.
What's up?
You just said.
Yeah.
Well, they asked me what my name would be if I joined FaZe.
So you can see why Clavicular has become such a social phenomenon, and how having people that both love and hate is the winning formula. He's been laughed off as someone comparable with Derek Zoolander and Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, but because he has a very young and impressionable audience, there's been a concerted effort to debunk some of his arguments. In fact, some of the statements you've just heard Clavicular confidently say may not even be all the way true. Philion, who was originally known for attacking fitness influencers for most of his early career, claims that Clavicular means most of what he says, but there are certain things that he says purely to get attention.
I know how serious he is about all of this, but I think there's a few, I don't want to call them jokes, but almost booby traps that just get clipped and then make him even more famous, like the limb lengthening, the jaw surgery. I'm suspending my belief because I truly don't think one would go that far, but prove me wrong, I guess. I'll eat my words if he goes through the titanium jaw implants and limb lengthening surgery. and then he'll mog me into oblivion.
And when Clavicular said he was taking meth, he knew the reaction he was going to get.
Now, this is another booby trap. From what I understand, what I've reviewed on X, it is a pharmaceutical grade of methamphetamine that is prescribed by a doctor. It's hard to get, and it's akin to Adderall. It's similar. It's not smoking it out of a crack pipe, from what I understand, like Walter White style.
But whether he's sincere or not, many people feel that he's spreading a dangerous message, particularly in relation to teenagers taking steroids, despite the fact that he has repeatedly told people that they should not follow what he does. The fitness influencer Coach Colton has probably been the most effective person in attempting to debunk a lot of what Clavicular has been saying. In one video, he explained just how dangerous some of his advice taken could be.
Well, in this video, we see Clavicular using bidirectional cogs he found on eBay. In translation, this means Walmart craft supplies to manufacture artificially a canthal tilt. What this is basically a non-surgical thread placed in a subcutaneous portion of your skin, so under that first layer of skin, that will latch on and then anchor into your skin and then pull it tight so that you can artificially create a facelift without surgery. Now, keep in mind, while I'm showing you this, he's 18 years old. And as he pulls on the strings from his eyes, he says that if he died, at least he would have positive canthal tilt. So obviously he's right in the mind.
When it comes to his advice on taking the steroid trend, it gets even more dangerous.
Is the one steroid that many people take and editorialize online to make it sound like it's something so amazing and unique. But what it really does is causes architectural changes to the brain, makes you kind of paranoid, insecure, and much worse things. I mean, it creates an environment that's so unnatural you can develop lactating nipples as a man, which is just kind of crazy. So yeah, it's great stuff, or at least that's what the internet would have you believe. Now look, I'm not here to virtue signal. I've been on trend before. I help bodybuilders. I'm a professional bodybuilder. I've done these things before and I understand how they work. However, I've never seen people use trend the way that Clavicular is attempting to use trend, which is to modify his facial features and improve a physique.
Clavicular talks about psychology and biology in a very accessible and understandable way, even chemistry as well. But in doing so, he has to simplify things. And these broad and sweeping statements are found all across Clavicular's public content.
When we talk about good viable information, that usually comes from a place where somebody, far as their experience level is concerned, is coming at this thing from a non-objective standpoint. They are very, in a sense, unsure, right? There is plausibilities, there is possibilities, but there is no concrete and certain things. You hear this a lot with actual professionals, not like Mike Israetel, the most overweight scientific lifter in the world, but you hear this a lot with other scientific practitioners where it's like there's a chance that, or it appears that, it is never that this happens definitively. And one of the dangerous things with individuals like this is it's very definitive. Everything is definitive in almost every single video.
Bear in mind, all of this, or most of this psychology that he's developed, hasn't fully come from medical journals or research, but from working at a nightclub, personal experiences, stories that he may have read online. And he has said that as he gains more and more experience, he may change things.
He said he used to work as a nightclub bouncer in one interview, and that's how he saw all these relationships play out, but that's not real life. Sure, if you want to smurf in nightclubs and bars where the bar itself is so low, and you crave human affection, attention, and attachment that much, be my guest.
Clavicular is, of course, only 19 years of age, which means that he's still a very, very young adult and still navigating his way through life, albeit it is a lot more difficult when there are so many eyes on you and you're making so much money. He also admits that he's willing to change his mind whenever he's presented with information that proves him wrong. But this is also another important thing. Clavicular looks like he's in his mid-20s. And there will be a point where all of this would theoretically catch up to him, right?
Take it as somebody who is in their 30s. You keep caring about the way you look as you get older. In fact, I think it never stops. I think you got guys in their 60s and 70s looking in the mirror, and you know what I'm saying? Obviously, some old people give up, but you got guys in their 60s and 70s looking in the mirror in the morning when they get ready and being like, okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to look as good as possible.
Clavicular has some interesting things to say, and it's surfacing a sub-niche in its own pocket of the internet to the mainstream, quote, normies. It's definitely important to take care of your appearance, but doing whatever it takes is exactly what killed one of his biggest inspirations, fitness YouTuber Rich Piana. And hopefully this status ascension he's had recently convinced him to reconsider any extreme measures he previously thought would help him get further in life or his career.